Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Barrens Chat Podcast. I'm Sod, and with me tonight is my co-host, Guck. This is a podcast about World of Warcraft by two guys who play it. Guck, we are 5 weeks away from the global launch of Shadowlands. BlizzCon Virtual was announced. We have a date on that, February 19th and 20th, so I would imagine we'll see a Burning Crusade announcement with that, which will be pretty cool to see. Pretty light on the news. The Venthyr Afterlives came out. That was pretty cool and interesting. Obviously, that's our first raid tier. And Sire Denathrius, the man speaking in the Afterlife short, is the last boss in that. So, a little preview of what we're headed into with that. How was your week in gaming? I know you're pretty busy this week, but did you get anything going?
I didn't get much going. No, my real life stuff has been taking over. Real busy with school, but it's great that I get to use this term. Every other content producer for WoW content this last week, just overwhelmingly, everyone was milking the Venthyr cutscene about how the Venthyr cutscene was milking our boy Garrosh. We're not going to really get time to do that. The one thing I will say, though, because everyone else has beaten the cutscene to death, well, I guess we can talk about two things about it if you want to, Sod. The first thing, the hour after that video was released and I saw it, I posted in our guild Discord that I think Garrosh would be a hidden phase in the Mythic fight. And then everyone else is also mentioning the same thing. They're bringing up Illidan from Legion. I'm going to fucking screenshot that and keep that message for when that happens so I can post it up on the Twitter to show how ahead of the game we are. Because we haven't been ahead of something like this since Sod had the retail AV experience thing that you posted up. So yeah, I mean, I'm excited. I think it would be cool. I'm excited for the raid. I think the lore that they presented is interesting. It's, a little bit more complex. It's political. It's an intrigue level to the story. I'm cool with it. I think it's going to be a dope raid. The design is fine. I think that some of the rooms look a little repetitive in their design, but ultimately for a first raid, this feels just like a step up. It's just like a lot of good looking bosses. The textures are an increase. The mechanics look better. It's not the same particle effects that we've been getting. It looks really good. So I'm satisfied right now with what we're going to get when Shadowlands comes out. What else did you think about that cutscene?
I thought it was cool. I liked it more than I liked Maldraxxus, but I would say I still liked Bastion and Ardenweald better. I'm like, obviously like the lore is going to be new to both of us as we're going through Shadowlands for the first time when it launches. But I think that the lore speculation and like the depth that the lore is going into, like if you saw that Bellular video with the text that they found from like a millennia ago about, all these great powers that are consistently in conflict with each other. So I think this expansion lore wise is probably set up to be, I would say, the best that we've seen in WoW, right? I mean, that's how it looks to me. I think it looks really cool. The first raid tier I'm looking forward to, and something that we got to a little bit last week, the Mythic Plus changes with the highest item level that drops from the end of dungeon reward is lower than Heroic. Now, only one item drops at the end of the dungeon for your entire group of 5, so gearing is slower. This is something that I think is good, at least for the raid scene. Obviously, if you're a Mythic Plus player, it's bad, but I think it's good because, and I wanted to get pretty deep into this because 2 weeks into the raid tier, you don't need loot unless it's from the last boss on Mythic or the last 2 bosses on Mythic, unless it's a pretty specific trinket that drops out of the raid. So it eliminates a lot of people's motivation to consistently raid week in and week out. And I think what this Mythic Plus change has done is, incentivize raiding more, which I think has been necessary for this game for at least the last expansion. And I would say even dating back to Legion, I think this is a good change. And if they introduce tier sets into this, it'll be even better. I'm starting to like the change more and more, and like people that we play with are conflicted because some of the guys are more Mythic Plus players. But what do you think about that? Like, do you think that obviously you and I are in our rating guild and in leadership roles in a rating guild, so this helps us out a lot. But like, do you think it's a good change?
I think it's a healthy change. I think it's good for the health of the game. It adds longevity without really making the process too arduous. Yeah, I mean, you're right. It doesn't take that long of heroic farm to not need any loot out of heroic. And then once you start doing mythic progression, even after your weekly cash a few times, if you get lucky, high mythic plus rewards, and then the gear that you do get off of those mythic farm bosses, you're not really hurting for eye level for a very long period, but you're still just like fighting the boss. I think if they do a better job correlating item level to power, it will be a good thing. I feel like it's a really complicated issue where there's a lot of pluses and there's a lot of minuses. A bad thing, I think they double dipped on nerfing Mythic Plus. I think the item level being lower than Heroic was already a fine nerf, but dropping the items down from a standard of 3 to a standard of 1 is like that just to me seems a little excessive. I personally would be fine with the item level being lower to incentivize raiding, to incentivize progression raiding and pushing as many bosses as you can do. I'm fine with that, but you should also give people who have bad luck an opportunity to change the odds in their favor through time. And after your weekly raid lockout, there's nothing else that you can really do, especially if your time is limited and, Mythic Plus, you get bad luck and you're the odd guy out 5 dungeons in a row and you haven't gotten a single piece of loot because only one piece of loot drops. It just doesn't seem like a long-term recipe for success. I feel like in BFA, we had a lot of people drop out of the game early because the systems weren't engaging and you were forced to engage with those systems. So it felt a little boring, if that. And in Shadowlands, I'm worried people are going to be like, yo, I don't want to put the time in to maybe get lucky and get gear besides raiding. And it's going to lead to people just raid logging or not logging at all.
Yeah.
So, I'm not, overall, I'm not too excited about the change. Do I think the change to maybe like the weekly chest will fix it? Maybe. But overall, I'm not excited for the loot changes.
Yeah, I mean, really, it throttles the Mythic Plus situation. Like, for after about a month of you playing BFA and getting back into it, you're really only looking for upgrades in your weekly chest. So this really isn't anything new. Like, it slows you down if you're a Mythic Plus player, but it's really like where you're going to be at, where you're at 2 weeks into the season right now anyway, if that's the content that you're pushing. So I don't think it's the end of the world, right? I mean, like, I haven't looked for an item out of a Mythic Plus in a long time, right? I mean, I can't remember the last time. Like, maybe if I get something socketed, but even then, all my other gear is socketed, and I think it's good. I guess throttling is bad, right? Like, we complain about it a lot, like, and the player base complains about it a lot, but I think in this case, it's probably good.
Yeah, man. We're gonna keep talking about this idea for sure, because like I think it will suck during the first few weeks of the game. Like, think about that. When we just hit max level and we're desperate to replace the leveling gear with dungeon gear, it's gonna come really slowly. And after that point, we don't have that long until raids start. So our first few performances in raid are going to be limited by a system that Blizzard just decided was like, well, okay, we're going to restrict the gear now. And there's nothing we can do about it. Those few weeks beforehand, there's just so little loot that will drop, but you'll be forced to run it because there's no raids that you can run and you have to be ready for the raids. So it seems like they're purposefully almost funneling people even through normal to run heroic to then run mythic, because like there's just not going to be that much loot. And even when you consider a full heroic run, like that's also not that much loot for 20 hold people. you're going to have to do some normal stuff too, just for the loot those first few weeks. It's going to be nuts. I hope that it doesn't happen that way, because I don't see us running normal. I think we're going to go just straight heroic. But if it's the best thing to do for gear and we have to do it, I'm not going to be satisfied.
Yeah, I would say, like, if anything, like with our raid schedule, what we'll probably do, and we haven't talked about this yet, but like it'll probably be on scheduled raid nights, we'll do heroic, and then like if you have time, highly encourage you to pug heroic, or get a half guild group if people are on and get into that. It definitely incentivizes every raid difficulty that much more.
Yeah, I mean, how much lower is normal raid item level below the max Mythic Plus eye level? I gotta check that.
I haven't even looked. I would say it's within 10 item levels, I would think, right? Honestly, like that is something that's like way off my radar. I didn't even think to look at that. Normal is going to be very important early on, and it's going to limit loot trading, which is another reason to hate personal loot if you're in an organized guild. And something that we didn't even think about with that, like you can't trade loot because it's going to be a higher item level, so it's bound to you, and there's no option to trade it. That really, really screws over an organized raiding environment. Whereas, like, if you are in a guild that's been together for a while and you have a core of like 15 or so people that are going to be there and going to be around and going to stay on those characters, and you would want to funnel them loot first, but you can't do that because of the personal loot situation. So it makes it that much harder to be in an organized community and trying to progress as a team.
Yeah, I it's all going to come down to the quality of the loot, I think, as well. I've got the numbers here. Mythic 7, 8, and 9 all have 200 eye level end of dungeon rewards, and that's what the first 8 bosses of normal will drop. So if you're running 7 through 9s repetitively, that's just as good as running normal. Depending on speed, it may be better, but obviously if you're trying to maximize your time, you're going to run both. But then you have to consider Mythic 10 and 11, that's 204, 12, 13, and 14 actually, 207. So even the not max level keys, you can be running them and getting better loot than normal. So it may work out depending on timing, depending on quality of raid gear versus dungeon gear, that we don't have to run, normal, but will really incentivize people that, hey, you'll have to put in a lot of time in dungeons, just to get some starting loot. And, I think people are going to do it, and I think it's going to be fine because we're going to have new expansion excitement, and spamming stuff isn't going to be that exhausting. But it's going to get old. Like, late into a patch, this is going to get old.
Yeah, definitely. Well, the second patch for sure, right? When it's your second cycle, going through the dungeons, preparing for the next raid tier, that's when you're going to start to see burnout. Like, people are going to get frustrated. They're doing the same dungeons over and over again. The scaling, if there's one thing I'd like to not see, I'd like to not see them scale world quests again. Like, I don't like that they scale the world quest loot to the raid loot of the previous tier. I think having people run through the previous tier when there's another tier out isn't bad. Like, why is it bad for that content to only be relevant for 3 months? So that's something I'd like to see with that. And yeah, the second raid tier, that will be, really the deciding factor. But also they could change the system by then too, and maybe up the item level of the end of dungeon reward. So there is time to see that, and we'll see how they like that with the first patch, and then maybe the second raid tier we see some changes. Obviously, that's something that we'll get into a lot as just the way you and I play the game. End of dungeon rewards and the initial parts of the raid tier is something that we're definitely going to be focusing on early on in Shadowlands life.
Yeah, man, we'll see. Honestly, it's going to come down to how good are these dungeons? How good do the affixes fit into these dungeons? Because that's, like, honestly, at the end of the day, that's what's going to incentivize people to keep playing. If they have fun running those dungeons and actually getting rewards, that's going to keep you playing, and you're going to be that much more prepared for raid. Raid's going to go smoother, get more gear. Keep rolling. Honestly though, for me, and I know for you, you probably feel the same way, just having new WoW content, something not just like a new raid tier, but a brand new expansion with new zones, a new leveling, the new raid with a new guild for us right now. Anything that happens is going to be exciting. So I'm just looking forward to it beginning 5 weeks out. Something that's weird about it though, if we don't see a pre-patch announcement video when this episode goes live on Tuesday, where is it? How late are they going to wait until we get the pre-patch announcement and then the pre-patch?
Yeah, it's interesting because they had a blue post today that said the end of the PvP system, or it's not system, season was coming, and, rated will go away and there will be a preseason for Arena and for Mythic Plus or a postseason, I guess, because the preseason will start in that first week. Mythic Plus launches in Shadowlands. It's interesting because I would assume, or I did assume early on, that we would get a 2-week notice for the pre-patch drop, right? A lot of stuff goes away with the pre-patch, the end of the season, ahead of the curve, cutting edge, so people want to get their mounts and their achievements done before the end of the season, right? So if you're looking to get Keystone Master, or you want to get the Void Dragon from ahead of the curve, or if you have enough gold or your guild is pushing cutting edge, time's running out on that. And I would have expected, and also the Brutosaur mount, and I would have expected a 2-week notice for that to give people a heads up. But we're 5 weeks away from the expansion, and I will be very surprised if we don't see a pre-patch on the 29th. That would give us a 4-week pre-patch and head right into Shadowlands on the 26th. And it's strange to me because I don't know. I mean, they just released an update to the PTR for the pre-patch, and they changed some stuff. They did some balancing, so they're still working on it. I'm looking forward to the pre-patch. I really have barely touched WoW all week because I'm waiting for the pre-patch to level a couple characters, experience that new stuff, mess around with the class changes, and just kind of get a feel for where my class is at without the Covenant abilities in the Soulbinds. And still patiently awaiting that, and we'll see where we're at with it. Like, I mean, I know you also, haven't been overly active on WoW. You still log on here and there, but it's tough. I guess I'm expecting it the 29th. There's people speculating the 6th. I guess maybe we'll see an announcement tomorrow and get an official date.
Yeah, I feel like they could do a 3-phase pre-patch where like they start on the 6th and then the phase 2 of it's on the 13th, phase 3 of it's on the 20th, and then boom, we get the full release. I could see something cool like that. But I expected it to be a full month just because, I don't know. I think I originally expected it to be a full month just arbitrarily, but now thinking about what you've said, I think the 2-week warning is much more likely. Because, yeah, there's just so much that goes away with the pre-patch launching that they would want you to know about it. At least with a week's warning, and I think probably with a 2-week warning. But, if we don't see something on the 22nd, I would expect a 1-week warning on the 29th for a 3-week phased out pre-patch that just like goes through different phases of an invasion until the release that the final week in October.
Yeah, either way, time is running out, and if you have goals and you have time to work on them, get out there, get them done. There's still mounts to be collected. You could still do islands if those are mounts you want to collect. Visions, I keep telling myself I'm going to go grind visions to get that mount, but I hate doing them, so I never bring myself to do it. But there's still stuff out there to do in WoW and things to get done. A lot of the people that I've been talking to that I play with have been leveling characters and experiencing new classes, kind of like relearning and readjusting themselves into the game. So there's still stuff to do, and that's certainly something that if you're a goal-oriented person and maybe you're a mount collector, you can do it. You can do all that, which is good. Lastly, I wanted to get to BlizzCon, February 19th and 20th. It's virtual, so you probably need a virtual ticket. I'm sure you'll still see all the announcements. I think WoW-wise, we will probably see a Burning Crusade Classic release date, see what the game plan is with that, if all the servers are going to move to Burning Crusade, if you'll be able to transfer a character, if the servers will start new. I guess, we'll see what happens with that. We're 5 months away from that. Still really exciting. That's my favorite expansion, so I'm really pumped for that. Retail is going to be my main game. I will play Burning Crusade on the side, and just like I did with Classic.
Yeah, when Burning Crusade comes out, I'm going to play it much more casually than I played Classic. I've already got the experience. I'm not going to re-experience nostalgia. I just want to be able to enjoy the raiding as it was back then. That's what it's always been about. Before it's too late, I'm going to have to go in and do AQ and Nax when Nax is out. That might be when I start doing AQ, is when Nax is out. And then eventually just like peter into a Nax group. Anyways, thank you guys for listening. We're going to have a slightly shorter episode this week. We appreciate you guys as always. Hit us up on our website, baronschat.podbean.com. It's got all our contact info, our email, baronschatpod@gmail.com, or you can hit us up on Twitter, @baronschatpod, @SaudiLOL, or @GuckyMan. And as always, we will see you guys in the next one.